8 months after her husband took the company, the house, and 14 years of her labor, Tasha was on her knees, scrubbing the kitchen floor of the home she built. $14 an hour. Someone else's name on her uniform. She was cleaning the master closet when she felt it. The loose baseboard. Behind it, a small metal box she had hidden there 5 years ago. She did not know it yet, but what was inside was about to expose exactly how Brandon stole her life. He thought he had erased every trace. He missed one thing. The room smelled like new paint over something older. Tasha did not touch the panel. Not yet. Tasha's alarm went off at 4:53 every morning. Not 5, 4:53. 7 minutes before she needed to be upright gave her time to lie still and remember where she was. A studio apartment on Garrison Boulevard. 610 square feet. One room for everything. Her daughter, Keely, slept on the pull-out couch against the far wall. Her son, Jalen, slept on an air mattress wedged between the kitchen counter and the bathroom door. Tasha slept on a foam pad on the floor beside him, because if the air mattress deflated in the night, she wanted to know before he rolled onto the hard ground. She got up at 4:53 and did not turn on the overhead light. She used the flashlight on her phone. She moved through the apartment the way she moved through everything now. Quiet, careful, taking up as little space as possible. She brushed her teeth. She pulled her hair back. She put on the gray polo shirt with the Clean Pro logo on the chest and the khaki pants that went with it. The name stitched above the pocket said Tasha. At least they got that part right. She folded a second uniform into her bag in case the first one got stained before her afternoon shift. She packed 2 peanut butter sandwiches for the kids and wrote a note for Keely. Heat up the soup for lunch. Lock the door. Do not let your brother answer it for anyone. Keely was 11. She should not have had to be in charge of a 7-year-old for 9 hours on a Saturday. But the summer program at the community center did not run on weekends, and Tasha's mother Pearl worked Saturdays at the fabric store, and the math was the math. Tasha checked her phone. The Clean Pro app updated her schedule at midnight every night. 3 houses today. The first at 8:30, the second at noon, the third at 3:15. She opened the first address. A new client. 47 Wisteria Lane. She read it again. She read it a third time because the first 2 times the words did not feel like words. They felt like a door opening in a room she had locked from the inside. 47 Wisteria Lane. The house she and Brandon bought 11 years ago. The house she designed from the builder's blank floor plan, choosing every tile, every fixture, every cabinet pull. The house where Keely learned to walk in the living room and Jalen was brought home from the hospital through the front door in a car seat with a blue ribbon on it. She put the phone face down on the counter. She stood there for a while. The apartment was still dark. Both kids were still breathing the slow, steady breath of deep sleep. Somewhere outside, a garbage truck was grinding through the block. Tasha picked up the phone again. She could call the office and say she was sick. She could say she had a conflict. She could say anything. But a cancellation meant a write-up, and a write-up meant fewer hours, and fewer hours meant the rent check on the first would be short. She made $14.50 an hour. She could not afford to lose a single one of them. She kissed Keely's forehead. She kissed Jalen's. Neither of them moved. She picked up her bag and her keys and walked out the door and locked it behind her. The Honda Civic was parked on the street 2 blocks away because the apartment did not come with a space. A 2009 model with 168,000 miles on it. The only reason she still had it was because her mother Pearl had put it in her own name when Tasha bought it 12 years ago. Pearl had said at the time that it was just simpler for insurance purposes. Tasha understood now that her mother had been protecting her from something Pearl could see and Tasha could not. A photo of Keely and Jalen was taped to the dashboard with a piece of clear packing tape. Keely grinning with her front teeth missing. Jalen holding a stuffed dinosaur the size of his head. The photo was from 3 years ago. Before, Tasha turned the key. The engine caught on the second try. She pulled out onto Garrison and drove west toward the suburb she used to live in. 17 miles, 24 minutes with no traffic. She parked across the street from 47 Wisteria Lane at 8:19, 11 minutes early. The house looked the same from the outside. The mailbox had been repainted. The azaleas along the front walk were taller. Someone had replaced the porch light with a different fixture, but the bones were the same, her bones. Tasha sat in the car with both hands on the steering wheel. She did not cry. She had stopped crying about this house 4 months ago. She breathed in through her nose. 1, 2, 3. She opened the car door and stepped out. She walked to the side gate, the service entrance. She did not go to the front door. The front door was not for her anymore. The side gate latch still stuck if you pulled it straight. You had to lift and push at the same time. Tasha knew this because she had called the handyman about it twice, and both times it got fixed, and both times it went back to sticking within a month. She lifted, she pushed. The gate opened. She walked along the side of the house toward the back door. Her cleaning supplies were in her bag. Her phone was in her pocket. Her name tag was on her chest. She reached the back door and knocked twice. A woman opened it. Tall, mid-40s, natural hair pulled up, reading glasses pushed to the top of her head. She was holding a coffee mug in one hand and a phone in the other. "You must be from Clean Pro." "Yes, ma'am. I am Denise." "Kitchen and bathrooms first, please. I have a call at 11. Denise stepped aside. Tasha stepped in. The kitchen had been redone. New countertops, new backsplash. But the layout was the same, because the plumbing was in the same place, and the window above the sink still faced east, and the morning light still came through it the same way it had come through it every morning. Tasha had stood at that sink. The cabinets were different, shaker style now. Tasha had picked raised panel maple when she built this kitchen. Someone had torn them out. She set her bag on the floor by the island. She pulled out her spray bottles and her microfiber cloths and her gloves. She did not look around the way a person looks around when they are seeing a place for the first time. She looked around the way a person looks around when they are trying not to remember. The staircase was to the left of the kitchen. Tasha walked past it on her way to the hall bathroom. Her hand brushed the banister. She felt the small dent on the 7th spindle. Jalen had dropped a metal fire truck on it when he was 3. He had been trying to see if the truck could fly. It could not. The dent was still there. Denise either had not noticed it or did not care. The hall bathroom had been repainted. Soft gray now. It had been pale green when Tasha lived here. She had picked that green from a fan deck at the paint store on a Tuesday afternoon with Keely in a stroller. The gray was fine. It was not her gray. She cleaned the toilet. She cleaned the sink. She wiped the mirror, and for a moment she saw herself in it. Gray polo, rubber gloves, hair pulled back tight. She looked away and moved on. The living room had new furniture, leather sectional, glass coffee table. The old hardwood floors were the same. Tasha knew which boards creaked. She stepped on one without thinking. It creaked. 14 years of foot traffic, and it still creaked in the same spot. She worked her way through the first floor without stopping. She did not linger. She did not stand in doorways. She cleaned the way she was paid to clean. Efficiently, thoroughly, without attachment. Denise came downstairs once to refill her coffee. She smiled at Tasha on the way past. "Looks great so far." "Thank you." Tasha nodded. She did not say that she already knew this house would look great because she had spent 3 months picking finishes that were designed to hold up. She did not say she knew the grout in the kitchen was sealed with a 10-year coating because she had watched the installer do it. She did not say any of that. She said thank you and went back to wiping the baseboards. The house smelled different now. Denise used a lavender diffuser in the hallway. Underneath it was the same wood and plaster smell the house had always had, the way a body still smells like itself underneath perfume. Tasha noticed it the moment she walked in, and she had been trying not to notice it since. Upstairs was where it would get harder. Upstairs was the master bedroom. The room Tasha had slept in for 11 years. The room where she read to her children at night. The room where she had lain awake listening to Brandon on the phone in his office down the hall and wondering who he was talking to at midnight. She did not want to go upstairs, but upstairs was on the list. So she went. The story of how Tasha built everything she lost did not start with Brandon. It started in a kitchen that was not this one, a one-bedroom apartment on Druid Hills Road. Rent was $820 a month. Tasha was 24. She had moved to Atlanta from Memphis 3 years earlier with $600 and a suitcase full of recipes her grandmother had written on index cards in handwriting so neat it looked like a typeface. She started cooking for money because cooking was the one thing she could do without borrowing anything from anyone. A friend at church asked her to cater a child's birthday party, $40, and she would make the food for 20 kids. She said yes. She spent $19 on ingredients and made the rest by hand: fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, cornbread. A sheet cake with vanilla frosting she piped herself because she could not afford to buy one. The mother of the birthday child told 2 friends. Those friends told others. By the end of that year, Tasha was catering 3 events a month out of her apartment kitchen, cooking until 2 in the morning and delivering in her car with the seats folded down and aluminum trays stacked in the back. By 28, she had rented a commercial kitchen space on Memorial Drive. By 30, she had hired her first employee, a woman named Clarice, who could prep faster than anyone Tasha had ever seen and never once showed up late. By 32, Tasha had 4 employees, a delivery van with her name on it, and a growing list of corporate clients who kept coming back because the food was good, and Tasha showed up when she said she would and delivered what she said, promised. By 35, Tasha's table had 12 full-time staff, a 5,000 square foot commercial kitchen, and contracts with 3 of the largest event venues in the city. She catered weddings with 300 guests. She catered corporate retreats and nonprofit galas and private dinners where the bill for one table would have covered her rent for a year when she started. Annual revenue in the last full year, before the divorce, was $1.8 million. She did not inherit that number. She did not marry into it. She cooked her way to it one tray at a time with her grandmother's index cards pinned to the wall above her station. She met Brandon at a Chamber of Commerce dinner she was catering. He was 31, a financial advisor with a firm downtown. He came into the kitchen to compliment the food and stayed for 40 minutes talking to her while her team packed up. He was smart. He was charming. He asked questions about her business like he actually wanted to know the answers. They married 2 years later. Brandon offered to handle the finances for Tasha's table. He said it made sense. He had the training. She had the talent. He would manage the money side so she could focus on what she did best. She agreed. It sounded like partnership. It felt like relief. She signed the papers he put in front of her. She did not read every line because she trusted the man handing them to her. That is what you do when someone has earned your trust. You sign, you go back to the kitchen, you cook. Brandon managed the business accounts. He managed the personal accounts. He managed the investment accounts he opened in the 3rd year of the marriage that Tasha knew about in the general sense but did not track in the specific sense. She asked once how the investments were doing, and he said, growing. She asked what that meant exactly, and he said he would send her a summary. He sent her a 1-page printout with numbers on it. She looked at it. She nodded. She went back to work. Tasha did not know that by the 3rd year of the marriage, Brandon had begun moving money. Small amounts at first, adjustments he could explain as business expenses or tax strategy or reinvestment. She did not know because she was not looking. She was managing 12 employees and a 100-hour work week and 2 children under 5, and she had given the money to the one person she believed she did not need to watch. That belief cost her everything she had built with her hands. The cracks did not come all at once. They came the way cracks always come, slowly, quietly, in places you do not think to look until the wall is already leaning. The first thing Brandon did was suggest they consolidate the business accounts. Tasha's table had a dedicated operating account and a savings account she had opened at a community bank on Memorial Drive the year she got her first commercial kitchen. Brandon said it would be easier and more tax efficient to move everything into a joint account at his firm's partner bank. One place for everything, he said. Less paperwork, less hassle. Tasha agreed. She moved the accounts. The second thing Brandon did was open investment accounts under both their names that he managed exclusively. He told Tasha the investments were growing. He showed her statements once a quarter. The numbers looked right because Tasha did not know what wrong numbers would look like. She was a chef. She could read a profit and loss report for her kitchen. She could not read a brokerage statement the way a financial advisor could. The third thing Brandon did was hire a new accountant for Tasha's table. The previous one, a woman named Gloria who had been with Tasha since year 2, was replaced by a man named Curtis who happened to be a college friend of Brandon's. Brandon said Curtis had better rates. Tasha did not argue because she was working 14-hour days, and the accounting was the one part of the business she was happy to hand off. Curtis was not working for Tasha. Curtis was working for Brandon. He just happened to send invoices to Tasha's company. The fourth thing Brandon did was start making decisions without asking. A lease renewal for the kitchen space came through, and Brandon signed it before Tasha saw it. She asked why. He said the terms were standard, and he did not want to miss the deadline. She said she would have liked to read it first. He looked at her the way he had started looking at her whenever she questioned anything financial. Patient, slightly tired. You are overthinking it. You do this every quarter. She heard that sentence enough times that she started to believe it was true. Maybe she was overthinking. Maybe the money was fine. Maybe she should focus on what she was good at and let him handle the rest. That is what a team does. That is what trust looks like when you have not yet learned what it costs. There was one night, a Tuesday. Tasha was going through the monthly bank statements because Keely's school had charged a tuition deposit and she wanted to confirm it had cleared. She pulled up the joint account on her laptop. The balance was lower than she expected. $40,000 lower. She scrolled through the transactions. There was a transfer she did not recognize. $40,000 moved to an account number she had never seen. She sat with it. She almost asked Brandon that night. She was sitting on the couch with the laptop open and he was across the room on his phone, and she almost said it out loud. Where did $40,000 go? She did not ask. Not that night. The next morning, Brandon came downstairs with 2 printed airline tickets, Cancun, 5 nights, for their 10th anniversary. He put them on the kitchen island next to her coffee and said he had been planning it for months. She looked at the tickets. She looked at him. The question about the $40,000 did not disappear, but it moved to the back of her mind. It sat behind the resort photos and the flight details and the thought that maybe if he was planning a trip like this, maybe everything was fine after all. They went to Cancun. The water was clear. The room was beautiful. Brandon held her hand on the beach. Tasha let the $40,000 question stay where she had put it. She would not get to ask it again for another 3 years. By then, the answer would not matter because the money would already be gone. Brandon filed for divorce on a Monday morning in March. Tasha was at the commercial kitchen prepping for a wedding that Saturday when her phone rang. It was not Brandon. It was a process server standing at the front door of their house, asking if she could come accept the papers in person. She drove home. She signed for the envelope. She opened it in the driveway, with the engine still running. Petition for dissolution of marriage, filed by Brandon Elmore, represented by the firm of Whitfield Keene and Associates. She had heard of them. Everyone in the city who had been through a high-asset divorce had heard of them. They were the firm you hired when you wanted to win and did not care what it cost. Brandon had been planning this, not for weeks, for years. Tasha hired a lawyer named David Okoro. He was competent. He was experienced enough. He charged $350 an hour, which sounded like a lot until she learned that Brandon's lead attorney billed at $720. Tasha chose David because she did not want to spend money fighting. She wanted to be fair. She wanted to split things down the middle and move on with her life. That instinct, the instinct to be fair, was the most expensive decision she ever made. Brandon's legal team presented the marital estate as if Tasha had contributed almost nothing of financial value. The house on Wisteria Lane had been purchased with money from the joint account, which was true, but every dollar in that joint account had come from Tasha's table. Brandon argued that his financial management of those funds constituted equal contribution. His lawyers had case law to support it. Tasha's lawyer objected. The objection was noted. It did not change the outcome. The house was appraised at $680,000. Brandon's team proposed he buy out Tasha's share at half the appraised value minus what they calculated as his management contribution. The number they arrived at was $91,000. For a house built with money, Tasha earned cooking food with her hands. Tasha's table was the bigger loss. The company she had built from a $40 birthday party into a $1.8 million operation was valued by an appraiser selected by Brandon's attorneys. That appraiser assessed the business at $410,000. He based the valuation on 1 year of revenue using the books Curtis had been managing. The books Curtis had been managing for Brandon. The real value was closer to $900,000. Tasha knew this because she had lived inside those numbers for 14 years. But knowing something and proving it in court are not the same thing. She did not have the money to hire a forensic accountant. She did not have the money to hire her own appraiser. David told her she could fight it, but it would take months and tens of thousands of dollars she did not have, and there was no guarantee. The investment accounts Brandon had opened were structured in his name through a limited liability company he had formed without telling Tasha. On paper, they were not marital assets. They were business holdings of an entity Tasha had never heard of. $360,000 in those accounts alone, legally untouchable. The settlement gave Tasha $114,000 after David's fees, after taxes, after the costs of moving and deposits, and the gap between having everything and having to start from zero. The money lasted 7 months. She signed the divorce papers in a conference room with fluorescent lighting and a water pitcher nobody touched. Brandon sat on the other side of the table. He did not look at her. He looked at his phone. Tasha walked out of 14 years of labor, a company she built by hand, and a house she designed from a blank floor plan with a check, a car that was not in her name, and 2 children who did not understand why they could not go home. Tasha moved into her mother's house on a Thursday afternoon. Pearl lived in a 2-bedroom bungalow in College Park that she had owned for 31 years. The mortgage was paid off. The roof needed work. The kitchen faucet dripped. Pearl lived on Social Security and a small pension from 22 years as a school cafeteria worker. She was 68 years old, and she did not ask Tasha a single question when she showed up with 3 suitcases and 2 children. She just opened the door. Keely was 9. Jalen was 5. They shared the 2nd bedroom. Tasha slept on the couch in the living room for 4 months. She folded the blanket every morning before Pearl woke up so the living room would look like a living room and not a bedroom. She did not want her mother to see the shape of her failure pressed into the cushions every day. Keely asked on the 2nd night, "Mom, why can't we go back to our rooms?" Not a question, a statement with the shape of a question. Tasha opened her mouth, and nothing came out for 3 seconds. Then she said the rooms needed some work, and they would figure it out soon. Keely looked at her the way children look at adults, when they know the adult is not telling the whole truth, but love them enough not to push. Tasha applied for jobs. She applied at restaurants first, because that was what she knew. She applied at 4 in the first week. 2 never called back. 1 called and said she was overqualified. The 4th brought her in for an interview, and the manager looked at her resume and said, "You ran a $1 million catering company, and you want to work the line at $14 an hour." He said it like it was a joke. It was not a joke to Tasha. She needed $14 an hour. She did not get it. She applied at 2 more restaurants, a bakery, a food truck operation that needed a prep cook. Nothing. The gap on her resume confused people. She had gone from running a company to nothing, and the nothing made hiring managers uncomfortable. She found Clean Pro on a job listing site at 11 at night, sitting on her mother's couch with the lamp off so she would not wake the kids. Residential cleaning. $14.50 an hour. No benefits. No experience required. She applied at 11:07. They called her the next morning. Her first day was a Wednesday. She put on the gray polo shirt and the khaki pants, and she stood in front of the bathroom mirror at Pearl's house and looked at herself. She looked for about 4 seconds. Then she turned away and did not look at herself in a mirror in uniform again for a long time. She cleaned 3 houses that first day. A townhouse in Buckhead, a condo in Midtown, A split-level in Decatur. She scrubbed toilets, and wiped counters, and vacuumed carpets, and mopped floors, and carried her supplies from room to room in a caddy that left a red mark on her forearm by the end of each shift. She came home at 6:30, and Pearl had dinner on the table, and the kids had done their homework, and nobody asked Tasha how her day was because Pearl had told them not to. On the third week, Brandon posted a photo on social media. Tasha saw it during her 15-minute lunch break, sitting in her car in a subdivision parking lot eating a granola bar. The photo showed the living room of 47 Wisteria Lane. New furniture, new paint. The caption said something about fresh starts and interior redesign. A woman was in the background of the photo. Monique. Tasha did not know her last name. She had dark hair, and she was sitting on a couch in the house that Tasha's money had built. Tasha looked at the photo for about 10 seconds. She locked her phone. She finished the granola bar. She went back inside and cleaned the second floor. That was the routine. Wake up, get the kids ready, drive to the first house, clean. Drive to the second house, clean. Drive home, eat whatever Pearl made. Help Jalen with his reading. Check Keely's math. Sleep on the couch. Wake up, do it again. She did not take a sick day for 4 months. She did not complain. She did not talk about Brandon or the house or the company or the life she used to have. She talked about grocery lists and school forms and whether the Honda needed an oil change. The smaller the conversation, the safer it felt. Pearl watched her. Pearl did not say much, but she watched. One night after the kids were asleep, Pearl sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and said just one thing. "You are still standing, baby. That counts." Tasha nodded. She went to the couch. She pulled the blanket up. 5:20 the next morning. Alarm. Up. Uniform. Out the door. That is who Tasha was when the Clean Pro app assigned her 47 Wisteria Lane 8 months after the divorce. That is who she was when she sat in the parking lot and read the address and read it again and felt the air in the car change. She had already been inside the house by then. She had already cleaned the kitchen with new countertops that replaced the ones she chose. She had already wiped the banister with the dent on the 7th spindle. She had already passed through the living room where Keely took her first steps and noticed the chandelier she picked from a catalog 6 years ago still hanging from the ceiling. Denise had kept the chandelier. Of all the things the new owner changed, she kept that one. Tasha worked through the first floor without stopping. She did not ask questions. She did not explain that she knew why the kitchen faucet sometimes ran warm for the first 3 seconds. She did not say that the creak on the 3rd stair from the top was because the subfloor had a gap that the builder never fixed. She cleaned and she moved on. Denise came down once to get water. She said the house was looking good. She said thank you. She went back upstairs to her office. She did not know anything about the woman cleaning her baseboards. Tasha finished the first floor and went upstairs. The hallway was narrower than she remembered, or maybe it was the same and she was different. The guest bathroom had been retiled. The kids' rooms, Keely's old room and Jalen's old room, were now a home office and a reading room. The reading room had a window seat that Tasha had installed because Keely used to sit by that window and read every afternoon after school. She cleaned both rooms. She did not linger. The master bedroom was last. She opened the door. The bed was different. The curtains were different. The dresser and the nightstand and the rug were all different. But the closet was the same walk-in closet with the same built-in shelving she had designed with the contractor 5 years ago. She stepped inside with her spray bottle and her cloth and started wiping down the shelves. She was on her knees, cleaning the baseboard along the back wall when she felt it. The slight give in the panel near the floor. The same loose baseboard that had never been fixed because the contractor said it was cosmetic and would cost more to repair than it was worth. Tasha had lived with it for 6 years. She knew exactly what was behind it. When the contractor installed the closet shelving, the baseboard had come loose and left a gap about 2 inches wide between the panel and the wall. Tasha had used that gap. Every quarter, when she backed up the financial records for Tasha's table, she made 2 copies. One went in the office filing cabinet. One went on a USB drive that she slid into the gap behind the baseboard in the master closet. Her mother had taught her that. Pearl used to keep copies of every important document in a shoebox under her bed. "Always keep a copy somewhere safe," Pearl said. "Somewhere that is just yours." Tasha had put the last USB drive behind that panel 3 months before Brandon filed for divorce. It contained the complete financial records of Tasha's table from the first year through year 12. Revenue reports, expense logs, payroll records, bank statements, tax filings, every number from every quarter before Curtis took over the books and started making the company look like it was worth half of what it was. She pressed the panel. It moved. She slid her fingers into the gap. The USB drive was there, a small black rectangle no bigger than her thumb. 5 years behind a loose baseboard in a closet that had changed hands twice and nobody had thought to look. Brandon had redesigned the whole house. New furniture, new paint, new fixtures. He did not touch the closet baseboards because there was no reason to. They were cosmetic. They were not worth the cost. Tasha held the USB drive in her hand. Her fingers were shaking. Not a lot. Just enough that she noticed. She looked at the small black rectangle, and she thought about the numbers on it. She thought about the numbers Brandon's appraiser had given the court. She thought about the difference between those 2 sets of numbers. She thought about what that difference meant. She put the USB drive in the front pocket of her uniform. She zipped the pocket shut. She stood up. She finished wiping the baseboard. She finished cleaning the closet. She finished the master bedroom and carried her supplies downstairs and told Denise the house was done. Denise said thank you and that she would request Tasha again next time. Tasha said that would be fine. She walked out the back door and through the side gate and across the street to her car. She sat in the Honda Civic with both hands on the steering wheel. The USB drive was in her pocket. She could feel it against her leg, a small weight, smaller than a lighter, heavier than anything she had carried in 8 months. She did not drive, not yet. She sat there and breathed. Tasha did not go to the library that night. She went home. She cooked dinner for the kids. She helped Jalen sound out words from his reading book. She checked Keely's homework. She folded laundry. She did everything she was supposed to do, and she did not mention the USB drive sitting in the front pocket of her uniform, which was now folded at the bottom of her bag on the floor beside the couch. She lay down at 10:30. She did not sleep until 1. The drive was in her pocket all the next day, too. She cleaned 2 houses with it, pressed against her thigh, and every time she bent down to scrub a floor or reach under a cabinet, she felt the small rectangle shift against her leg, and the weight of it was not physical. It was a question. The question was whether she was going to do anything with it or let it sit in a pocket until the pocket wore through. 3 days passed. She did not open the drive. She did not tell Pearl. She did not tell anyone. She carried it and she thought about it, and she did not act. On the 4th night, Pearl was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, and Tasha was standing at the sink washing dishes. Pearl was not looking at her. Pearl was looking at the table. She said something that seemed to come from nowhere. "Your grandmother lost 40 acres in LaFleur County in 1963. Tasha turned off the water. She did not turn around. Pearl kept talking. She said Estelle had inherited the land from her father, 40 acres of farmland in the Mississippi Delta. A white neighbor named Harwell told Estelle he would manage the lease agreements for her. He said the paperwork was complicated and she should let him handle it. Estelle trusted him because she had known him her whole life and because she did not know what else to do. Harwell transferred the deed into his own name over the course of 2 years using documents Estelle signed without understanding. By the time she realized what had happened, the land was legally his. She could have fought it, Pearl said. A lawyer in Jackson told her she had a case, but she did not have the money, and she did not have the proof. The papers she signed were the papers she signed. She lost 40 acres because a man she trusted told her not to worry about the details. Pearl picked up her tea. She took a sip. She set it back down. Mama did not have the proof. You do. Tasha stood at the sink with her hands wet and her back to her mother, and she did not say anything for a long time. Pearl did not say anything more. The faucet dripped. Jalen coughed once in the other room and went back to sleep. The next afternoon, Tasha drove to the public library on Ponce de Leon Avenue. She signed up for a computer session. 45 minutes. She sat down at the terminal and plugged the USB drive into the side of the monitor. The drive was 5 years old. It took 11 seconds to load. There were 14 folders, each one labeled by quarter and year. Inside each folder were spreadsheets, bank statements, tax documents, and payroll records for Tasha's table. 12 years of financial history. Every dollar that came in, every dollar that went out, every account number, every deposit, every withdrawal. She opened the folder for the last full year before the divorce. She pulled up the annual revenue summary, $1.8 million. She had lived that number. She knew it was real. She opened a second window on the browser and searched for public court records from her divorce case. It took her 15 minutes to find the filing. The business valuation Brandon's appraiser submitted to the court listed the annual revenue of Tasha's table at $940,000. She looked at her number. She looked at his number. The difference was $847,000. She sat in the library chair and stared at the screen. The cursor blinked. The fluorescent light above her hummed. A child at the next terminal was watching a cartoon with the volume too loud. Tasha did not hear any of it. She was looking at two numbers, and the distance between them was the size of a life. Tasha called 4 law firms in 3 days. She made the calls during her 15-minute breaks, sitting in the Honda in parking lots between cleaning jobs. The first firm said they could not reopen a finalized divorce settlement. The second said the same thing. The third said it was possible, but would require a retainer of $8,000. Tasha had $412 in her checking account. The fourth firm said they would need to review the documents before making any determination, and their consultation fee was $250. She did not have $250 to spare. Pearl told her about legal aid. Pearl had a friend from church whose daughter had used them after a landlord dispute. The Atlanta Legal Aid Society. Free legal services for people who qualified based on income. Tasha qualified. She qualified by a wide margin. She walked into the legal aid office on a Tuesday morning at 9:15. The waiting room had plastic chairs and a television mounted on the wall playing the news with no sound. She filled out an intake form. She waited 40 minutes. A woman at the front desk called her name and walked her down a hallway to a small office with a metal desk and 2 chairs and a window that looked out at a parking garage. Reginald Cole was 31 years old. He had been practicing family law for 4 years, 2 of them at legal aid. He wore a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, and he had a legal pad in front of him and a pen in his hand, and he looked at Tasha the way a person looks at someone when they have heard a version of this story before and are waiting to hear how this version is different. Tasha told him. She told him about the company. She told him about Brandon managing the money. She told him about the settlement. She told him about the house. She told it the way she told everything now. Flat. Factual. No tears. Just the sequence. Reginald wrote notes. He nodded. He did not interrupt. When she finished, he said what she expected him to say. That many divorce cases feel unfair after the fact. That revisiting a finalized settlement was difficult. That the bar for reopening asset division was high. Tasha reached into her bag. She pulled out a folder she had printed at the library. She put it on the desk. On the left side was the revenue summary from her USB drive. On the right side was the revenue figure from Brandon's court filing. She did not say anything. She let the numbers talk. Reginald looked at the left page. He looked at the right page. He picked up the left page and held it closer. He set it down. He leaned back in his chair. Where did you get this? I kept backup copies of my company's books, every quarter for 12 years, and these are the originals, before his accountant took over. Yes. Reginald was quiet for about 10 seconds. He pulled the 2 pages side by side and ran his finger down the columns. He stopped at a line item. He looked at it for a while. This is not just divorce fraud, he said. If these numbers are accurate and the originals can be verified, this might be wire fraud. He moved money across state lines through accounts designed to conceal assets from a legal proceeding. Tasha did not move. I can file a motion to reopen the asset division based on fraud. If the court grants it, everything gets re-examined. The house, the business valuation, the investment accounts, all of it. What are the chances? With this kind of discrepancy, better than most. But I need to be honest with you. This will take months. He will hire the same lawyers he hired before. They will fight every motion. They will try to delay until you give up. And he will come after you personally. They always do. Tasha sat in the plastic chair in the legal aid office and looked at the man across the desk and weighed what he was telling her against 8 months of silence and survival and the faces of her children when they came home from school, every day to a studio apartment. She weighed it against the sound of her mother's voice, saying Mama did not have the proof. File it, she said. Reginald filed the motion on a Thursday. Brandon received the legal notice the following Monday. He was at his office downtown when the courier delivered it. He read it in his car in the parking garage. He sat there for 12 minutes before he made a phone call. The phone call was not to his lawyer. It was to Tasha. Her phone rang at 2:17 in the afternoon. She was kneeling on a bathroom floor in a house in Druid Hills, scrubbing grout with a toothbrush. She saw the name on the screen, Brandon. She had not heard from him in 8 months. She had not deleted his number because she needed it for the children's schedule, she answered. His voice was calm, the kind of calm that has something underneath it. I got a notice today from a lawyer I have never heard of. You want to tell me what this is about? Tasha did not answer immediately. She was still kneeling on the bathroom floor. The toothbrush was still in her hand. It is about what you took from me. I did not take anything from you, Tasha. A court decided how things were split. That is how the law works. The court decided, based on numbers, that were not real. You know that. Silence on his end. 3 seconds. 4. You really want to do this? Think about the kids. Think about what this does to them. You want Keely sitting in a courtroom answering questions about her parents. I want Keely to know that when someone steals from you, you do not sit quiet. Brandon hung up. He did not say goodbye. 2 days later, his lawyers filed a motion to dismiss. The grounds were that the divorce settlement had been finalized, that Tasha had agreed to the terms, and that the new evidence she claimed to have was unverified and potentially fabricated. The motion was 14 pages long. Brandon's legal team had drafted it in less than 48 hours. They were ready. They had been ready for this possibility the way a person is ready for a fire they know they started. Brandon began calling Keely on Wednesday evenings. He had always had a midweek call, but now the questions changed. He asked Keely about her mother's schedule. He asked if anyone new had been coming to the apartment. He asked if Mommy had been talking to any men lately. Keely was 11. She answered honestly because she did not know why the questions mattered. She told Tasha about the calls on a Saturday morning. They were sitting on the couch eating cereal. Keely said, "Daddy keeps asking if you have a boyfriend." She said it the way children say things that confuse them, straight, without context. Tasha put her spoon down. She took a breath. She said, "Your daddy and I are working through some grown-up things right now. The questions he is asking are not about you. They are about me. And you do not have to answer anything that makes you uncomfortable." She said it without raising her voice. She said it without saying a single word against Brandon. That restraint cost her something she could not name. Monique posted a story that same week. Tasha saw it because a mutual acquaintance's account showed it in the feed. The story was a photo of a sunset with text over it. The text said, "Some people cannot let go of the past. Bitterness is not a good look." It was not addressed to anyone by name. It did not need to be. Tasha looked at it for about 5 seconds. She closed the app. She put her phone on the counter face down. She went back to folding Jalen's school uniforms. Brandon's strategy was delay. His lawyers filed 3 more motions over the next 6 weeks. A motion to compel discovery, a motion to challenge the admissibility of the USB evidence, a motion requesting that Tasha pay Brandon's legal fees for what they called a frivolous reopening, Each motion required a response. Each response took time. Brandon was betting that time was something Tasha could not afford. He did not know about legal aid. He did not know Reginald was working the case for free. He assumed Tasha was paying a lawyer she could not sustain. He was wrong about that. It was one of several things he was wrong about. Reginald filed responses to each motion. He was methodical. He was not flashy. He cited case law. He attached documentation. He did not engage with the personal attacks in Brandon's filings. He treated the case the way he treated every case. Like a math problem with a human being at the center of it. Tasha kept cleaning houses. She kept picking up Keely and Jalen from school. She kept cooking dinner on Pearl's stove and folding the blanket on the couch every morning. The legal process moved slowly underneath her daily life, like a river under ice. She could feel it, but she could not see it. She went to work. She came home. She waited. Tasha returned to 47 Wisteria Lane 3 more times over the following weeks. Denise requested her specifically through CleanPro. The house was always clean enough that the work was light. Tasha suspected Denise did not need a cleaner every week. She suspected Denise liked the company. They did not talk much the first 2 return visits. Denise would say hello and point out anything specific and go back to her office upstairs. Tasha would clean and leave. But small things accumulated. Denise left a glass of water on the kitchen counter with a note that said, "For you." Denise asked one afternoon if Tasha wanted the radio on while she worked. Denise said, "Good morning," one day in a way that sounded like she meant it more than usual. On the 4th visit, Denise was in the kitchen when Tasha arrived. She was not working. She was sitting at the island with a cup of coffee and her reading glasses on, and she looked like she had been waiting. "Can I ask you something?" Denise said. Tasha set her bag down. "Last week, you fixed the window in the guest room, the one that sticks. You knew exactly how to open it. You did not try different ways. You just did it." Tasha did not respond right away. "And the faucet in the hall bath. You told me to turn it slightly to the right before pulling up. I have lived here for 3 months, and I could not figure that out. You knew it on the first try." Denise took off her glasses. She set them on the counter. "You have been in this house before, have you not?" Tasha stood by the island with her cleaning supplies in her bag and her uniform on and her name tag over her heart, and she made a decision in less than 2 seconds. She told the truth. "I built this house. I lived here for 11 years. My daughter took her first steps in that living room. My son broke the spindle on the 7th stair with a toy fire truck when he was 3. Denise did not speak. She looked at Tasha for a long moment. Not with shock, not with drama, with the kind of quiet that comes when something you sensed but could not name finally gets said out loud. "I had no idea," Denise said. "I am sorry." She got up from the stool. She walked to the coffee maker. She poured a second cup. She set it on the counter in front of Tasha. "Sit down." Tasha sat down. She had not sat at that counter in over a year. The last time she sat there, she was reviewing a catering contract for a wedding, and Brandon was upstairs on the phone. She did not say that. She picked up the coffee, and she drank it. Denise asked how it happened. Tasha told her. Not the whole story, the short version, enough to explain how a woman goes from owning a house to cleaning it for someone else in under a year. Denise listened the way people listen when they have been through something similar, enough to recognize the shape of it, even if the details are different. She had been divorced 5 years ago. She knew what the word costs. "I bought this house from a man named Brandon Elmore," Denise said. "He seemed in a rush to sell. I thought it was a relocation. The price was below market. My agent said to move fast before he changed his mind." Tasha nodded. Brandon needed money. Of course he sold fast. "There is something else," Denise said. She stood up and walked toward the door that led to the garage. "When I moved in, there were 4 boxes in the back corner of the garage. Cardboard, taped shut. He said he would come back for them within a week. That was 3 months ago. He never came." Tasha followed Denise into the garage. Against the far wall behind a bicycle and a stack of moving blankets were 4 cardboard boxes, standard size, taped with brown packing tape. No labels. "I almost threw them out last month," Denise said. "I am glad I did not," Tasha looked at the boxes. She did not open them, not yet. She looked at Denise. "Can I come back for these?" "You can come back whenever you need to." Tasha drove home that evening with the coffee still warm in her chest and the knowledge that somewhere in a garage on Wisteria Lane there were 4 boxes with Brandon's name on them that he had been too careless or too arrogant to retrieve. She did not know what was in them. She would find out. But she already knew one thing about Brandon that had always been true and that he had never understood about himself. He was sloppy with the things he thought did not matter. He always had been. That was how a USB drive survived 5 years behind a baseboard. That was how 4 boxes sat untouched in a garage for 3 months. Brandon was careful with the things he stole. He was careless with the evidence he left behind. The hearing was held on a Wednesday morning in courtroom 4B of the Fulton County Superior Court. The room was small, wood paneling, fluorescent lights, no jury, just a judge, 2 legal teams, and Tasha sitting in a chair behind Reginald with her hands folded in her lap. Brandon sat on the other side of the aisle. He wore a charcoal suit and a blue tie, and he looked the way he always looked when he wanted people to believe he was in control. Composed, steady. His lead attorney from Whitfield Keene sat beside him with a stack of folders and a laptop open on the table. Reginald stood first. He spoke for 11 minutes. He laid out the timeline. He presented the USB drive evidence. He showed the court 2 sets of numbers side by side. On the left, the original financial records of Tasha's table as maintained by Tasha herself for 12 years. On the right, the figures submitted to the court during the divorce by an appraiser retained by Brandon's legal team. The difference between the two was $847,000. He presented the digital forensic report. An independent specialist had examined the USB drive and confirmed that the files had not been modified since the date they were last saved. The timestamps matched the quarterly backup schedule Tasha had followed for over a decade. The data was clean. He presented the contents of the 4 boxes from Denise's garage. Inside were bank statements from 3 accounts Tasha had never seen. 2 were held under the name of a limited liability company registered to a post office box in Savannah. The 3rd was a brokerage account opened 6 months before Brandon filed for divorce. The combined value of transactions across those accounts exceeded $360,000. None of it had been disclosed during the divorce proceedings. Brandon's attorney stood. He argued the USB files were old and unverifiable. He argued the boxes had been in the possession of a third party and the chain of custody was compromised. He argued that the original divorce settlement had been agreed to by both parties and finalized by the court, and that reopening it would set a dangerous precedent. Reginald responded with 3 sentences. The forensic report was conducted by a certified examiner with 17 years of experience. The bank statements in the boxes bore Brandon's name, his social security number, and his signature. And the precedent for reopening asset division based on evidence of fraud was well established in Georgia family law under Section 19-5-13. The judge asked Brandon's attorney if his client wished to respond to the specific discrepancy in the business valuation. Brandon's attorney looked at Brandon. Brandon leaned forward and spoke into the microphone. The financials for the business were handled by a financial advisor I retained at the time. Any discrepancy would have originated with his reporting, not mine. The courtroom was quiet. The judge looked at Brandon for a long moment. She looked at the file in front of her. She looked back at Brandon. "Mr. Elmore, you are a licensed financial advisor. Is that correct?" Brandon did not answer for 4 seconds. "Yes, Your Honor. And the financial advisor you retained to manage your wife's business accounts, that was you." "I had oversight, but the day-to-day was handled by Mr. Elmore. Were you or were you not the primary financial manager for the business known as Tasha's Table during the period in question?" "Yes." The judge wrote something down. She did not look up for a while. The courtroom waited. She granted the motion to reopen the asset division. She ordered an independent audit of all financial accounts held by Brandon individually or through any entity during the marriage. She referred the case file to the district attorney's office for review of potential wire fraud. She set the next hearing date for 90 days out. Tasha did not receive money that day. She did not receive an apology. She received a date on a calendar and a legal order that said the truth would be examined. That was enough for now. She walked out of the courthouse at 11:42 in the morning. The air was warm. She stood on the steps and called Pearl. Pearl answered on the second ring. She did not say hello. She said, "Tell me." "It worked, Mama. They are opening everything back up." Pearl did not speak for a few seconds. When she did, her voice was different, smaller, wet. "Oh, baby. I need to pick up the kids from school," Tasha said. "I will tell you everything tonight." She hung up. She walked to the Honda. She drove to the school. The audit took 4 months. The independent examiner found that Brandon had concealed a total of $1.1 million across 6 accounts, 2 shell companies, and a trust he had established without Tasha's knowledge. The money had been moved in small increments over a period of 5 years. Every transfer was documented. Every dollar was traceable. The court ordered Brandon to pay Tasha $780,000. The remaining amount was reduced by legal adjustments, tax liabilities, and the cost of the forensic audit. $780,000, not $1.8 million. Not the full value of what she had built, but more than the $114,000 she had walked away with the first time. Brandon's financial advisor license was suspended pending investigation. The district attorney's office opened a formal inquiry into wire fraud. At the time this story was told, he had not been charged, but his practice was closed. His clients were gone. His reputation in the city was a sentence people started with, "Did you hear about?" and finished with a slow shake of the head. Monique left him 3 weeks after the audit results became public. She moved out of the apartment Brandon had rented after selling the house to Denise. She did not post about it on social media. She just disappeared from his feed the way people disappear when the money disappears first. Brandon ended up where people end up when they spend years building a lie and the lie collapses. Not in prison, not on the street, just smaller, quieter, living in the space between what he took and what it cost him. Tasha did not buy back the house on Wisteria Lane. She did not try. The house belonged to Denise now, and Denise had made it her own, and Tasha had no interest in living inside a memory she had already walked through enough times on her knees with a cleaning cloth in her hand. She bought a food truck, a 20-foot step van with a commercial kitchen built into the back. She found it at an auction in Marietta for $22,000. It needed work. The generator was old. The ventilation hood needed replacing. The exterior was plain white with no signage. She named it Pearl's Kitchen. She painted the name herself on a Saturday afternoon, with Keely holding the stencil and Jalen handing her brushes he had arranged by size on the grass. She filed for a business license on a Monday. She passed the health inspection on a Thursday. She served her first customer on a Friday at a farmer's market in East Atlanta Village. Fried chicken sandwich, collard greens, sweet potato pie. The recipes were her grandmother's. The hands were hers. Tasha moved out of the studio apartment on Garrison Boulevard and into a 2-bedroom unit in a complex off Campbellton Road. It was not large, it was not fancy, but Keely had her own room for the first time in 11 months. She put a poster on the wall the first night, a singer Tasha did not recognize. Keely stood back and looked at it and said, "This is my room." She said it like she was testing whether the words were true. They were. Tasha kept cleaning houses for CleanPro 3 days a week while she built the food truck business. She did not quit until Pearl's Kitchen was pulling in enough to cover rent and groceries and gas and the insurance on the truck and the payments on the equipment she had financed. That took 5 months. The day she turned in her CleanPro uniform, she folded it neatly and put it in a bag and left it at the office without ceremony. She did not need to make a moment out of it. The moment had already happened. It happened the day she decided the USB drive in her pocket was worth more than the silence she had been carrying. Denise became a regular customer. She placed the first catering order Pearl's Kitchen ever received, 60 meals for a faculty appreciation lunch at her school. Tasha delivered them herself. She pulled the food truck into the school parking lot and set up the serving line. And when Denise came out to help carry trays inside, she said, "The fried chicken is better than anything I have ever made, and I need you to know that bothers me." Tasha almost smiled. Almost. Reginald came by the truck one Saturday. He ordered a plate and sat on the curb eating it. He did not talk about the case. He talked about the sweet potato pie. He said it was the best thing he had eaten in 6 months. Tasha said it was her grandmother's recipe. He said her grandmother knew what she was doing. Tasha said yes, she did. 6 months after the court ruling, Tasha was parked at a community block party on the south side, serving plates through the window of Pearl's kitchen. Keely was beside her, handing out napkins and making change. Jalen was sitting on a folding chair near the back tire, doing his math homework with a pencil that needed sharpening. A woman came to the window. She was young, maybe 28. She had a toddler on her hip and a look on her face that Tasha recognized because she had worn it herself not long ago. The look of someone standing in the middle of a life that has just come apart and trying to figure out which direction to walk. "How did you start this?" the woman asked. She was looking at the truck and the menu board and the line of people waiting. "I just went through a divorce, and I do not know where to begin." Tasha looked at her. She looked at the toddler. She looked at the woman's hands, which were holding the child the way you hold something when it is the only thing you have left. "Come back tomorrow," Tasha said. "I will show you my kitchen." The woman nodded. She did not say thank you. She did not need to. She just nodded and walked away with her child, and Tasha watched her go and then turned back to the grill. Tasha was not rich. She was not where she had been before the divorce, and she might never be there again. Pearl's kitchen was a food truck, not a catering empire. The apartment on Campbellton Road was not a house on Wisteria Lane. The numbers in her bank account had fewer digits than they once did. But every morning, Tasha woke up in a life that belonged to her. She cooked food with her hands. She fed her children with money she earned. She answered to nobody about where the dollars went because she knew where every single one of them was. She kept her own books. She read every line of every document before she signed it. She taught Keely to do the same. That was the thing Brandon could not take. Not because he chose not to, because it was never his to take. The knowledge of what she was capable of building had always lived inside her. He could move the money. He could hide the accounts. He could restructure the assets and hire the lawyers and file the papers and walk away with everything she had earned, but he could not take the thing that earned it. That thing was still in her hands. It had been there since she was 24 years old, standing in a one-bedroom apartment on Druid Hills Road with $600 and her grandmother's recipes. It was still there now. This story is fiction. Tasha is not a real person. Brandon is not a real person. The events described did not happen in the way they were told or in any other way. Names, characters, locations, and situations were created for the purpose of storytelling. But the patterns in this story are real. Financial abuse affects an estimated 99% of domestic violence cases, according to the National Network to End Domestic Violence. Research from the University of Michigan found that women's household income drops by an average of 41% after divorce, while men's drops by only 23%. Asset concealment during divorce proceedings is one of the most underreported forms of financial fraud in the American legal system. I wrote this story because I have watched women in my family and in my community trust the wrong person with their money and spend years paying for that trust. Not because they were foolish, because they were loyal, because they believed partnership meant not having to check, because the system made it easy for someone with more knowledge to take from someone with more faith. If you are married or about to be married, I am asking you to do one thing. Keep your own records, know where your money is, read what you sign. This is not about distrust. This is about building a partnership on transparency instead of blind faith. Both people should know where every dollar goes. That is not suspicion. That is respect. If you or someone you know is experiencing financial abuse, the National Domestic Violence Hotline can be reached at 1-800-799-7233 The Legal Aid Society provides free legal services in every state. SCORE offers free mentoring for small business owners trying to rebuild. Tasha is not real. But the woman she represents is sitting somewhere right now trying to figure out how to start over. She might be reading a bank statement she does not understand. She might be signing something she has not been given time to read. She might be on her knees cleaning a floor in a house that used to be hers. If that is you, keep going. The proof is in the fight, not in the outcome.